Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a word that, honestly, it sometimes just makes my eyes glaze over. Vision.
It's such a heavy word.
It is. It's a total corporate buzzword. You see it on those posters in the break room, right?
Yeah, with a mountain or a rowing team.
Exactly. And some vague statement about synergy or something. It can feel so meaningless.
Fresh air.
But today we're looking at a source that tries to take that exact concept, which is usually stuck way up in the clouds, and really drag it down to earth.
Down into the messy reality of a suburban neighborhood.
Right. What happens when a vision isn't about, profit margins, but about how you actually treat the person living right next door to you?
It's a totally different game.
So to do that, we are unpacking a document called Baseline, Living the Vision in Our Community.
And this is basically the source code, you could say. It's the foundational text for the Baseline Family Church in Johannesburg.
And before you tune out thinking, oh, this is just a church bulletin, you should stick with us, because what's so interesting here is that this document, it reads less like a religious tract and more like a battle plan for community engagement in a really high-pressure place.
It really does. It's a blueprint for a specific lifestyle. And, for anyone listening who thinks this is just going to be a list of do's and don'ts, it's actually much more about, psychology and sociology than you might expect.
So wait, what are the main pillars?
The text breaks it down into 4. Being passionate and Christ-centered, loving deeply, serving selflessly, and transforming community.
Okay, let's just pause right there, because those sound exactly like the slogans I was just complaining about.
I get it. They do.
Loving deeply.
Right.
I mean, it sounds nice, but it's incredibly abstract. How do you even measure that?
Well, that's the tension the document actually tries to resolve. It kind of admits these are high ideals, but then it immediately grounds them in a very gritty reality.
Okay, so let's start at the bottom then, the foundation. The first pillar is being Christ-centered. Now, obviously for a church, that's expected.
It's the primary anchor, for sure. The text cites Colossians, establishing Christ as the head. But here's where we need to dig a bit deeper.
Okay.
A lot of organizations, they list values that just sit on a website and they never leave the page.
Right.
This document frames Christ-centeredness differently. It links it directly to Matthew 28.
The Great Commission.
Exactly. The instruction to go, teach, and baptize. And I think we really need to pause on that word, go.
Okay.
Because in a suburban context, the default is to stay, right?
Yeah.
We stay in our houses, we stay in our lanes, we stay in our little comfort zones.
That's so true. Suburbia is literally designed for staying. It's designed for privacy.
Precisely. So the text is arguing that you can't actually be Christ-centered while you're just standing still. It frames theology as this kind of kinetic engine.
A kinetic engine. I like that.
Yeah. If it doesn't move you, geographically or socially toward people, the source implies it might not be the real thing. It's not a static state of mind. It's a commission to move.
That is a key distinction. And the source says this explicitly. It says this isn't just words on a page, but a lifestyle and a calling.
Right.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second. It's really easy to say, go into the world in a sermon. It's really hard to do that on a Tuesday morning when you're late for work and the traffic is just awful.
And that brings us perfectly to the context.
Yeah.
You absolutely cannot understand this document without understanding where it's set.
Johannesburg.
Yeah, and the source paints a very vivid, almost stressful picture of it.
It uses words like dynamic and bustling vibe, which, if you know Joburg, is a very polite way of saying intense.
It is intense. The text describes the reality for the families there. It says they are striving for the best for their children, for growth, for safety, for meaning.
I want to double-click on that word striving, because that feels like the defining characteristic of modern city life, doesn't it? We're all striving.
We are.
We want the best grades for our kids, the safest neighborhood, the best security system. It all feels like a defensive posture.
It is defensive. And that's the friction point the source identifies.
Yeah.
In Johannesburg specifically, security is a massive concern. People build high walls. They have electric fences.
Right.
The architecture of the city itself is designed to keep people out.
It's a bunker mentality.
So when this document comes along and talks about loving deeply, it's advocating for something that is completely counterintuitive to that environment.
To love deeply in a city that's built on walls, you have to open the gate.
You have to. And the text, it explicitly lists the areas they operate in. Glenvista, Alberton, Brackenhurst, Brackendowns, Glenanda, Linmeyer, Basonia.
Why do you think they list the specific suburbs? Is that just like for SEO or something? Does it matter?
Oh, it absolutely matters. It grounds the vision in actual dirt and pavement. We aren't talking about loving humanity in some theoretical sense.
Yeah.
It's easy to love humanity. It's so much harder to love the guy in Brackendowns who keeps parking his car in front of your driveway.
That is a fair point. Universal love is cheap. Local love is expensive.
Exactly. And the text acknowledges how difficult this is. It argues that in a bustling, striving environment, connection just doesn't happen by accident.
No, if you leave it to chance, you'll literally never see your neighbors.
Right. So the text argues it cannot be passive.
Yeah.
It implies the default current of the city is actually isolation.
Yeah, it's entropy. If
Yeah.
you do nothing in a city like Joburg, you drift apart. You don't just drift together.
Exactly. Social entropy. So the document uses this key word, intentional. It says, our heartbeat to love deeply is not passive, it's intentional.
Which means you have to deliberately override the system of the city.
You have to fight the current to actually connect with someone.
That's a really powerful way to look at it. You're not just fighting your own laziness, you're fighting the design of your whole environment.
Right.
And speaking of environment, the text spends a lot of time talking about one specific location, Trinityhouse Glenvista.
Yes. Now, on the surface,
Yeah.
this might just seem like them saying, hey, this is where we meet.
Right. We meet at the school. Fine.
But if you look closer at the text, there is so much weight placed on why this location matters.
So it's not just a landlord-tenant thing?
Not at all. The source describes a shared ethos. It mentions that the school focuses on holistic education and a Christian ethos.
Okay.
Encouraging excellence in academics, character, and spirit. But there's a deeper layer here about the sacred and the secular.
Break that down for me.
Well, traditionally, church happens in a religious building, right?
Yeah.
Stained glass, separate from the rest of your week.
Sure.
By rooting themselves in a school, a place of math and rugby and parent drop-offs, they are physically dismantling that divide.
So they're not outsiders.
The text says exactly that. They aren't outsiders or just tenants. They describe themselves as neighbors who care.
I highlighted that section. It lists specific actions, bringing presence, friendship, prayer, and support to parents and teachers. It's almost like they're trying to blur the line between church and school and just make it all community.
That's the goal. It's about integration. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's refusing to compartmentalize your life.
You don't have your spiritual life on Sunday and your school-run life on Monday.
The vision is to merge them. They want to be a launch pad rather than a retreat.
Launch pad versus retreat. I like that. A retreat is where you go to hide from the city. A launch pad is where you prepare to engage with it.
Exactly. And that brings us to the mechanics of how they engage. Because it's one thing to say we are neighbors, but what does that actually look like?
Right. This is where the rubber meets the road. And this leads to that third pillar, serving selflessly. And honestly, this is where I get a bit skeptical again. Because service is another one of those words. Corporations serve their clients. Politicians serve their constituents.
It can sound like just a transaction.
Right. But the source defines it differently. It uses a very blunt definition, putting others first.
And then it gives these three little directives that I thought were fascinating because of how incredibly hard they are to actually do.
Which are?
Listen before speaking, give before taking, act before assuming.
Let's look at that last one. Act before assuming. That one really stood out to me because in high security, high stress suburbs, we assume so much.
We do. We assume the person driving slow is an idiot. We assume the neighbor with the unkempt lawn is lazy.
We assume the teenager walking down the street is up to no good.
Our brains are just wired for pattern recognition, and in a striving city, that recognition usually leans toward threat assessment.
Right. We're constantly assessing threats.
So act before assuming calls for a complete behavioral flip. Instead of analyzing the neighbor's lawn and judging it,
Oh, yeah.
you help them mow it.
Instead of assuming the person is hostile, you move toward them.
Exactly.
But that's risky, though. I mean, it's socially awkward.
It is awkward, and that's why they back it up with their source code. They cite Philippians. Look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others.
Which is the total antithesis of the striving mindset.
It is. In a city where everyone is striving for their growth and their safety, this vision asks you to look at someone else's interests.
And they also cite Mark 10.45.
The ultimate example. Jesus saying, he came not to be served, but to serve. The text uses that to say, this isn't just a nice thing to do, it's a ransom. It's a life-giving act.
But there's that friction point again. The city of Johannesburg tells you to look out for number one. Protect your time, protect your assets. How do you break that programming?
The source argues you need a complete operating system update. And they call it serving selflessly.
So practically speaking, what does this look like? Because we're not all going to be doing grand gestures every day. We aren't all Mother Teresa.
The source is very practical here, almost delightfully mundane. It mentions serving in streets, in schools, community projects, but it also zooms right in on the micro-interactions. It says, every role matters.
What kind of roles?
Leading worship, greeting at the door, serving coffee, mentoring a youth.
Okay, I have to push back on serving coffee. Is pouring a cup of Nescafe really transforming the community? That feels a little bit like busy work.
I see why you'd say that. But think about the context of the striving city again. In a world where every single interaction is transactional. I pay you. You give me good serving coffee for free with a smile. Simply to make someone feel welcome is a disruption of the entire pattern.
It's a non-transactional moment.
Exactly, and it democratizes the vision. You don't need a theology degree to serve coffee. You just need a posture of service. The text argues that each of these little roles contributes to the heartbeat of the whole thing.
So transformation doesn't happen through one big event, but through 1,000 small acts of service.
That's the idea. It's about hospitality in a hostile world.
Hospitality in a hostile world. That connects to the final pillar, transforming community. This is the result, right? If you do the first three, you get this one.
In a way, yes. But the text frames it through the lens of purpose.
Yeah.
And here's where I think the source makes its most provocative statement. It distinguishes between purpose and comfort.
Oh, this stood out to me too. It says, purpose is not defined by convenience.
Right. Purpose isn't defined by convenience or comfort. It's defined by following Jesus with intention.
Yeah.
And that is a massive challenge to the modern lifestyle.
It's a direct attack on it, really. I mean, look at our lives. We curate everything for convenience. We order food so we don't have to cook. We stream movies so we don't have to go out.
We spend thousands of dollars to maximize comfort.
And this text is basically saying, if comfort is your main priority, you cannot fulfill this vision.
You cannot love deeply and remain comfortable. The two are mutually exclusive.
That is a hard pill to swallow. Because we feel like we've earned our comfort. We strive all week. We work hard. We just want to relax. And the text says, no, that's when the real work starts.
Exactly. Because showing up when someone needs encouragement, which is one of the examples they give, that's rarely convenient.
No.
It usually happens when you're tired or busy or you have other plans. It happens when the game is on.
Transformation sounds like this big, glorious word. But the source material seems to imply that transformation is actually just a whole series of inconvenient choices.
That is a brilliant way to put it. Transformation is the accumulation of inconveniences accepted for the sake of other people. The text lists volunteering, mentoring, praying, giving.
And none of those are efficient in a business sense. They take time, they take emotional energy.
And they have to be consistent. The text mentions all those areas again, Alberton, Basonia, Linmeyer, and says that while the areas have unique needs, the mission stays the same.
Love deeply, serve selflessly.
It's a universal mandate applied to specific zip codes. It doesn't matter if you're in a wealthy suburb or a struggling neighborhood, the requirement to love deeply doesn't change.
So what does this all mean? We've got this document that lays out a pretty radical way of living in Johannesburg. It starts with theology,
Christ-centeredness.
but it ends up in the school parking lot and at the coffee station.
I think the core message here is about integration and activity.
Mm.
The source is fighting against a passive, consumerist version of community. It's saying you cannot simply attend this vision. You have to inhabit it.
You have to live it.
Yes, when they talk about the commission in Matthew and the service in Mark, they are painting a picture of a community that is always moving outward.
It's not a fortress where you hide from the bustling vibe of the city.
No, it's a base of operations from which you engage that vibe.
It's the difference between a bunker and a launch pad.
Exactly. A bunker protects you from the outside, a launch pad sends you into it.
And a launch pad for everyone, not just the leaders.
That's the every role matters part. If the goal is transformation, then the person greeting at the door is just as strategic as the person giving the sermon.
Why?
Because that greeting might be the first time all week someone has looked the visitor in the eye and actually seen them. That is loving deeply in a micro moment.
It's really focused on that human element. You know, we talked about the striving of the families in these areas, striving for success, for grades, for security. It feels like this vision offers a counter-narrative. You don't have to strive for status, you just have to serve.
That is a profound relief, isn't it?
Yeah.
The pressure of the city says, get more. The vision of this text says, give more.
And paradoxically, the text suggests that it's in the giving, the serving, the ransom that you find the meaning those families are actually looking for.
Precisely. You don't find meaning by winning the rat race. You find it by stepping out of the race to help someone else.
That brings us back to that idea of neighbor. In a spread-out city like Joburg, or really any modern city, we often don't know our neighbors.
Naga.
We might know their cars or their Wi-Fi network names, but we don't know them.
And the text challenges that directly. It mentions reaching out to the young adults next door, the school staff, the learners. It's asking for a breach of that social contract of isolation.
It's asking the reader to be the one who breaks the ice, which goes back to that act before assuming point.
Right. Don't assume they want to be left alone. Act. Reach out.
It's risky.
It is risky. It's awkward.
So awkward.
But that's where the Christ-centered part comes in as the anchor. If, as the text says, you are following the example of Jesus who gave his life, then a little social awkwardness in the driveway.
It's a price you can afford to pay. That puts it in perspective.
It does. The source material is essentially a call to courage. The courage to be open, the courage to serve, and the courage to be purposeful in a world that just prefers autopilot.
Purpose is not defined by convenience. I think that one phrase is going to stick with me.
It's the linchpin of the whole argument. If you want the vision, the transformation, the community, the love, you have to be willing to sacrifice the convenience.
Well, we have certainly covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from the book of Colossians to Glenvista, from theology to the uncomfortable reality of talking to your neighbor.
It's a comprehensive vision. It connects the highest beliefs to the most mundane actions.
It really does. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into baseline living the vision, let's just recap the journey. We started with the foundation, being Christ-centered.
Right, and not just as a belief, but as a kinetic engine, a commission to go.
Then we looked at the context, Johannesburg, a dynamic, striving city where families are looking for safety and meaning, but often end up isolated behind walls.
And those specific geographies, Alberton, Brackendowns, and so on, where this battle for connection is taking place.
We discussed the partnership with Trinityhouse Glenvista, breaking down that sacred-secular divide and being neighbors who care, not just tenants.
And we broke down the mechanics of serving, selflessly listening, giving, acting before assuming, and how that, leads to true community transformation.
The source ends with a very simple, punchy call to action. It says, stay passionate, stay Christ-centered, and go love someone today.
It's a great summary. It brings it right back to the immediate present. Today, not the 5-year plan. Today.
So here is a thought to leave you with. We talked a lot about that tension between purpose and convenience. The text suggests they are often opposites. So as you go about your day, whether you're in Glenvista or halfway across the world, ask yourself this. What uncomfortable choice might be required of you today to actually be a good neighbor?
Is it stopping to talk when you're already late? Is it mowing that lawn that isn't yours?
Is it acting before assuming? The vision says that's where the transformation lives, right there, in the inconvenience. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.